Good evening. I'm Mark Kogler, Chair of the Planning Commission, and I'd like to welcome you to our meeting of January 25th, 2022. If you are an active participant in Microsoft Teams and you don't have your microphone muted, please do so until you have an opportunity to speak. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and in doing so, there's a piece of information that we share every time, so I'll do that now. This meeting will be held as a teleconference only pursuant to AB 361, which allows for a deviation from the teleconference rules required by the Ralph M. Brown Act. Planning Commission meetings will be live streamed during the meeting and available to play later on YouTube by accessing the following link, www.prcity.com/YouTube. To participate remotely, residents can live stream the meeting at www.prcity.com/YouTube and call 805-865-7276 to provide public comment via phone. The phone line will open just prior to the start of the meeting and remain open throughout the meeting to ensure the opportunity for the public to comment on each item heard by the Commission. Written public comments can be submitted via email to planning@prcity.com prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting to be posted as an addendum to the agenda. If submitting written comments in advance of the meeting, please note the agenda item by the number or by the name. With that, we would like to open the meeting also with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would ask Commissioner Gibson if you'd be kind enough to lead us in that. And again, I would remind people if you're tuned into the meeting, please mute your microphones with the exception of Commissioner Gibson. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Field. Staff, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Christensen?
Present.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Present.
Commissioner Davis?
I'm here.
Commissioner Gibson?
I'm here, thank you.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Here.
Commissioner Neal?
Here.
Chairperson Kogler?
I'm here.
All present.
Very good, thank you. Warren, would you start staff introductions, please?
Yeah, I'll just go through all of them really quickly. So I'm Warren Frace, Community Development Director. With us tonight is Darren Nash, our City Planner. Darcy Delgado is our Associate Planner. David Athey is our City Engineer. Jessica Ferguson is our Administrative Assistant, along with Ashley Peterson and Marcy Reynoso. And then our Interim Deputy City Attorney is Isaac Rosen.
Very good, thank you. Item E on our agenda is general public comments regarding matters not on the agenda. This is an opportunity for public to address the Commission for, again, matters that are not on the agenda. I don't see any in the queue that I have. Staff, could you confirm that we don't have anybody that wishes to comment on item E?
No callers.
Very good, thank you. We'll move on to item F, which is agenda items proposed to be tabled or rescheduled. I don't believe there are any of those, but correct me if I'm wrong, please, staff.
That's correct. None.
Very good. We will move along then to item G. Item G is public hearing segment of our agenda, and we do have one tonight. It's for Sunrise Villas, PD 12-P21-019, located east of Fontana Road, north of Linnea Road, in the Olson South Chandler Ranch Specific Plan. That's APN 025-382-001. The applicants are the Paso Robles Housing Authority and Affordable Housing Development Corporation. Staff, could you please give us a report?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. This is Darcy Delgado, and I'll be giving the staff presentation for the Sunrise Villas Affordable Housing Development Project. So the project site is located on an approximately 3-acre parcel located northeast of Fontana Road and Linnea Road on the eastern side of the city. And this is within the Olson South Chandler Ranch Specific Plan, which is also known as the Viñedo Specific Plan. The subject site has a general plan land use designation of residential multiple family, which is high density of 24 units per acre. And it's also within the R5 residential multifamily zoning district of the specific plan, which allows densities between 8 to 22 units to the acre. So the project is a 69-unit low-income housing development, and this includes one manager's unit, so 68 units plus the manager's unit. The project will be 100% affordable. There is a mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. The project will be providing 134 on-site parking spaces, most of which are covered. The perimeter of the project will also allow for 48 additional street parking spaces, which could be made available to the guests visiting the complex. Other project amenities include bicycle racks, also a 1,200 square foot residence center, which also includes a common laundry facility, and as well as the leasing office. Also, there will be shared open space, including an open air sports court, play areas, playground equipment, barbecues, as well as open general community open space. So as mentioned, the site is within the Viñedo specific plan area, which allows for a maximum density of 1,293 dwelling units for the total specific plan area. Table 2.1.b of the specific plan dictates that the project site, which is identified as Planning Area 1, can develop with a maximum of 60 units. And so because of this density cap, the project is requesting an affordable housing density bonus, which would increase the project density from 60 units to 69 units. Under density bonus law, the project is entitled to an 80% density bonus of the number of units for lower income households, which would entitle the project to 55 additional density units or 124 total units, and they would also be entitled to 4 incentives or concessions. However, the project is not seeking to maximize the density bonus or utilize the concessions, but rather they are just proposing a maximum of 69 units, which would be the 9 additional density units or otherwise a 15% density increase. So here you can see the site planning reflects 5 apartment buildings with a standalone residence center. So I'm just going to click through these so you can see there's building A, building B, building C, building D, building E, and then the residence center. So buildings A and E, and then the residence center fronting on Fontana Road. Interior to the site, there's a playground, barbecue area, and the open air sports court. And these are just a few of the required amenities that are spelled out in the specific plan. In terms of architecture, here I've used building E as an example since it fronts onto Fontana Road. And then there's a little location marker in the bottom right-hand corner. So the project's architecture is consistent with the modern farmhouse style, which is identified in the specific plan. And that's defined by clean lines, simple geometric forms paired with traditional material applications. The siding material for this project predominantly consists of a mix of fiber cement board and batten with accent walls being stuccoed. And then the roofing material will be asphalt shingles, and the posts, trim, and fascia will all be wood. The color palette consists of various grays and off-white shades on each of the different buildings. And then in terms of height, the maximum building height for this zone is 45 feet and or 3 stories. So 4 out of the 5 apartment buildings are 3 stories and about 35 feet tall. And then the 5th building, which is building E and currently shown on the screen, is 2 stories and about 25 feet tall. On this elevation, you can also see the ground floor units have that patio area near their front door. And although the other buildings in the project all have upper floor balconies, building E is the only building that does not have second floor balconies on the street facing elevation. And so here we move to the interior facing elevation still on building E. So you can see each of the second floor units does have a balcony facing the interior side of the complex. This view of the apartment building also shows the tuck under parking configuration. I've also included an example for building A, which also has some frontage on Fontana, as well as the future road that wraps around the complex. And so this is the future road's street-facing elevation. And so you will note that the applicant has added a call out for the galvanized metal guardrail to the balconies. And that would be in response to comments that came out of the Development Review Committee back in December. So the concerns that were brought up by the DRC were that balconies could potentially become a visual nuisance depending on what items could be stored on the balcony. So the applicant made the changes only to the street-facing elevations to accommodate that specific concern. And then in addition to that, they provided in their statement, which is in the staff report, that they have management and maintenance staff that conducts daily walks on other properties such as the Oak Park project. And they patrol any unsightly storage or unpermitted uses of the area and that would further address the concerns that were raised by the DRC. So here we have still building A. So this is an interior facing elevation. So you can see again, we have the tuck under parking, and then they have the open balcony material. So not having any of the galvanized material on the interior facing elevations. Lastly, I'll point out that the 3-story buildings do not have third floor balconies on the street facing elevation, but they do on the interior facing elevation. The community room building, it also has frontage on Fontana Road. It also uses the same mixture of materials as the 5 apartment buildings. And this is the building that contains the leasing office, the community room, as well as the shared laundry facilities. And I will note that although there is a shared laundry facility in this community room, each of the individual units does have laundry hookups available, which was a requirement by the specific plan. Here are some examples of the colors and materials being used by the project, reflecting that neutral color palette and also consistent with the modern farmhouse architectural style. As mentioned earlier, the project is required to provide 139 total parking spaces, of which 123 parking spaces would be just for the residents, and then they would need at least 16 parking spaces for guests. So the project does go above the requirements and will be providing 134 parking spaces for residents, as well as the 48 spaces for guests, which totals 182 parking spaces. Since the street parking is within 200 feet of the project site, it does count toward the minimum requirements. And then I'll mention that the majority of the parking stalls would be covered by the tuck under parking as well as the solar carports, which you can kind of see on this plan. However, since it's still unknown what the solar needs will be at the time the project moves to the construction phase, for right now, these carports are considered placeholders on the plan. The applicant isn't sure that they will need to build all of them because I believe the buildings will also have solar panels on them as well. And here we have a preliminary landscape planting plan with just a close-up of one section of the complex. So the project is going to incorporate a variety of shrubs and ground cover materials. They'll have interior trees as well as street trees along the perimeter of the project. And just generally, we have a condition so that the final landscape and irrigation plan can include water use information for each zone, and that will be provided prior to issuance of building permits so that we can make sure that the species selected for the project conforms to our climate and our region. We have a requested amendment to one of the conditions of approval, and that would be to amend condition number 7 to make it clear that the applicant is creating a 100% affordable housing project. This would be consistent with how the project is described throughout the project materials that were submitted, and it's also consistent with the development agreement for the underlying specific plan for planning area 1. And so I'll just read the condition. So before issuance of building permits, the applicant shall enter into a density bonus housing agreement in conformance with the density bonus approved herein, the recorded 2020 development agreement between City and Olson Ranch 212 LLC and Municipal Code Chapter 21.16L in a form approved by the city attorney. The agreement shall deed restrict a 69-unit, 100% affordable housing development exclusive of one manager's unit run with the land. And so with that, there are several options before the Planning Commission tonight. Option 1 would be to adopt the draft resolution approving the development plan, Plan Development 2112 as conditioned and with the recommended changes to condition of approval number 7. Option 2 would be to approve the project with modifications to draft resolution. Option 3 would be to refer the project back to staff for additional analysis. And then option 4 would be to deny the project by adopting findings of denial. finding that the project would have a specific adverse impact upon the public health or safety, and there is no feasible method to satisfactorily mitigate or avoid the adverse impact. Staff's recommendation is option 1, which would be to approve the project, adopting draft resolution A, approving the plan development 2112, subject to those site-specific conditions that are attached to the resolution, and as well as the changes to condition of approval number 7. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Darcy. I'm wondering if the applicant or the applicant's representatives would like to offer any additional comments about the project before we go into questions.
This is Paul Davis. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can,
Okay,
Mr.
great.
Davis. Please proceed.
Perfect. All right, good. Yes, Chair, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity for us to present this project to you tonight. I can do a full presentation, although Darcy did a really good job and really picked up a lot of the fine points of what this project is like. I could just add a little bit more. Can I be a presenter, Darcy, or?
I believe that we just made you presenter, so you should be able to go ahead.
Okay, but that's the little box up in the right with an arrow?
Correct.
Okay, it's not, oh, there, great, perfect, got it. Okay. So.
I think, Mr. Davis, as you noted, Darcy did go through this with some level of detail. So if you would highlight things that you particularly think we need to be aware of, that would be great. Thank you.
Well, several different things. Just wanted to point it out that with the building with 3 stories, we tried to limit the 3-story impact, at least on the main road on Fontana. So on Fontana, we have a 2-story building right here in building E. We have a 1-story building here in building F, which is the kind of the public building, and then just the end wall of building A, just to reduce the impact of the project on the street. We do have along the perimeter of the 3 streets a 3-foot-high post and rail fence. But you can see from the site plan, there are openings in that fence for the access by the occupants or guests from the parking spaces along the street. So we aren't walling this off with a fence or gates or anything like that. The intent is that we are part of the community, and we have these entry points to be able to get back out into the rest of the site area. The buildings are basically very simple, and really credit with staff. For the last 3 months, we've been meeting with staff maybe every 2 weeks. And we have been able to rework these site plans to really limit the massing and its presentation to our neighbors. And one of the main or one of the key parts of that is that when we have 3 units on the 3rd floor, we don't have an exterior stair that we are providing to get to those units. This is the 1st floor right here, accessing from the tuck under parking. The residents come up to the 2nd floor to get to their second floor units, and then another half flight up to get to where, or full flight to get to the 3rd floor units within the building itself. So we limit the impact of a 3-story stair with only a 2-story stair on the building. Let me just go to these renderings. This is along Fontana. This is over here. This to the lower left-hand corner is a typical facade at the 2 other locations, or the two other streets. where we interface with the neighborhood. And this is where we have these accesses out to the sidewalk that then can connect us to the other amenities there in the other portions of the specific plan build out. We did prepare a quick little, using an exhibit from the specific plan. We put the site plan inside that plan to show where we stand with the other elements in the future build out, including access. This is a percolation pond or a percolation pond for stormwater. But these two elements here are future open spaces developments that we will be able to access off of this street from the openings that I pointed out with sidewalks going out to the sidewalk. Let me see. There's one more. Here is a better illustration of these the railing, the guard railings to provide screening for the balcony. And this is a detail similar to this is what we are proposing. So we're able to screen those balconies from the public streets. And I think I'm looking at my notes really quickly. I think that's about it, and I'm available if there are any questions.
Very good. Thank you for that information. Members of the commission will kind of run down the line as we typically do and see if we have questions of staff and or Mr. Davis. I'll start with Commissioner Jorgensen.
Thank you. I was on DRC when this project was presented, and I really don't have any additional questions. I think our questions have been answered, and I'm think it is an appropriate project. So no questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Neal.
I do have a question on the 68, on the breakout of the affordability levels, the 19 low income, 42 very low, and 7 extremely low. Do we have how those are? I mean, are there any 3-bedroom units in the extremely low? And do we have a breakout by apartment size for each of those?
Darcy, this is Lori. I can take that if you can hear me.
Yes, Lori, we can hear you.
Great. Hi, this is Lori Doyle. I'm with Affordable Housing Development Corporation. I'm co-developer of this proposed development in front of you this evening, Sunrise Villas. I'll be happy to answer that question. So relative to 1-bedroom units, we have one bedroom unit at extremely low income. We have 9 1-bedroom units at very low income and 6 1-bedroom units at low income. So those extremely low is 30%, very low is 40 and 50, and low is 60% of area median income. For 3 bedrooms, we have 2 bedrooms. We have 3 2-bedrooms at 30% extremely low income. We have 18 2-bedroom units at very low income and 9 units at low income. And finally, for 3-bedroom units, we have 3 at extremely low, 30% of area median income. We have 15 at very low income and 4 at low income.
Great, thank you very much. And that just makes me like this project even more. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
All right, we'll continue. Commissioner Davis, any questions?
Just a couple of comments and maybe one question to staff. Like Roberta, I was on DRC when this came forward, and I really do want to compliment the applicants for really listening to some of our ideas about connectivity to the community and especially about the balcony. And I appreciate the explanation of how the management team would handle the enforcement of that. So I think we were really heard at the DRC level. I do have a question, and I think this goes to staff. Maybe Mr. Davis would want to comment on it. One thing I observed is I liked how the 3-story was towards the back of the development. I thought that they did a good job in how they presented that and having the mass in the back. I guess my question is, what impact does that have on planning area 3? What are they looking at with a 3-story? I just kind of wanted staff to maybe comment on that as they reviewed that notion.
Hi, Sherry, it's Darcy again. So consistent with the specific plan, which allows, 3 stories up to, I think it was 45 feet. The project has on that perimeter, so the interior to, future townhomes that are in, I think, planning area 2. So the buildings are within the range that's allowed by that zone. So you'll see 3 stories and 35 feet. And Paul might kind of chime in or add to it. So when we were reviewing the project early on, staff had commented on, just what was proposed. And I'm not sure if at the time they had the 3rd floor have the balconies facing the exterior, but I feel like a lot of the comments that were provided led to the exterior elevations to have kind of a scaled back massing on that 3rd floor, just trying to be sensitive to future development on that side. So Paul, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah. Yes, Darcy, I will. In fact, this slide is perfect. What we did based upon staff's recommendations, worked on the visible massing of these buildings. So even though we have some 3-story elements like this one right here, we step back down to a 1.5 massing, 1.5 story at this point. These porches are at 2 stories. We extended roofs out over 1st floor unit porches to be able to help this part of the facade here. And really, this whole scene or picture that you have is typical of the rest of the building. So we wanted to have a lot of ins and outs and ups and downs. This is a window into that one stair that goes up in between the units to get to the top units here. And like Darcy said, we do not have any patios up on the 3rd floor for just to respect privacy for 2-story buildings and the developments across the streets. These are entry doors and then living room windows that also are screened a little bit because of their depth back from the railing and back underneath this roof element.
Thank you. That really helps explain that maybe quasi concern that I might have had. I do have a couple more questions. I very much like this project. Would you consider, with the slide that we see, the primary entrance to be close to where the community center is, or is there a primary entrance?
You mean a primary driveway entrance?
Yeah, yeah. Entrance to the development. Would you consider that?
Sure. Yeah, we would consider this the primary entrance, although at this point we're not proposing the other one that loops around to not be, secured or have limited access. But we would have probably a smaller monument side here, but this would be the signed entryway to the project.
Okay, it made sense as that's where the office was in the community center. I know that the signage would probably come back to us at a later date. One other question, not a major concern, but I think I heard that solar panels might be on the roofs. I don't see where or how. And I know there's some solar on the carports. Could I have some greater clarity on that?
Lori, would you have any comments on that? I think we're still studying based upon available roof orientations and the level of solar that we need to have or desire to have, that's still under just under study. So
yeah, that's correct, Paul. Thank you.
Okay.
We're still determining, obviously we are required by California code and Title 24 requirements for some solar. In most instances of our developments, we go above and beyond that. In fact, sometimes trying to get to a net zero. And so at this time, our solar consultant and our energy consultant are working on a plan for placement on the buildings, as well as having the availability to do solar port. So we're not completely sure how much of any of that we'll have until we get a little bit closer to permits.
Okay, and then my question back to staff, will we have a chance to review that?
So the way the the conditions of approval are laid out, it's for the plans to go back to staff, planning division staff prior to issuance of permits. If the planning commission desires to see the final details before those permits would be issued, assuming the project gets approved, then we can always change that to go back to the development review committee instead of staff.
All right, that's all I have for right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Mr. Christensen, questions?
Thank you. One question I had was the width of Fontana Road. What's the width of that road going to be at completion of the project?
Hi, this is David Athy, city engineer. So the road's going to be approximately 50 feet, curb face to curb face. It's going to have two 12-foot travel lanes, two 6-foot bike lanes, and two 7-foot parking lanes. And if you'd like to see a figure, I can put one up on the screen.
That would be great, because I was just looking at this and the layout and a couple of the other rendering overheads. And like, for example, I see some of the parking spacing on the left-hand side, but not on Fontana. And there's also an in-cut into the curbing there to look like it makes more room. I just would like to see, there we go, how that's going to pan out on Fontana Road, which is obviously going to be a much heavier commercial traffic road.
Yeah, we anticipated that. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was kind of rambling at the end.
No, that's okay. So we anticipated that, and both Fontana and Lene are developed with this 12-foot travel lanes and includes parking, I believe, on one side or both sides of Lene, but that doesn't affect this project. And so this is the conceptual layout. In terms of the curbs that are extending into the right-of-way, this is really kind of a plug-and-play project. So the way the development agreement is set up is that this project basically gets plopped down. The developer of the Olson South Chandler project does all the frontage improvements. So we haven't seen those plans yet, but we're going to make sure that we have basically the configuration you see on the screen. And if they're proposing some type of extended curbs or something, we're going to make sure that they work with the overall project and this in Fontana Road.
Okay, because I've heard some concerns with some of the other commercial businesses out there, wanting to make sure that they're people are safe, and so I get their concerns, because that is so well traveled now. It's hard to envision it as it sits. And on that overhead, I didn't see that on that rendering. It didn't really show a defined parking area on the apartment side that I could see. So
right.
That's definitely a concern. All right, well, I appreciate you putting that up there. That's the only question I really have right now. I would be, as Commissioner Davis noted, I think I would be in favor of that coming back to the DRC as well, Lori, for the solar. So just want to put that in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Christensen. Commissioner Gibson, questions?
My first question would be of staff, and just picking up a little bit on some of my other commissioners' comments in regards to the balconies. I appreciate that the applicant took the the concern of the DRC in regards to the street-facing balconies, but I'm hearkening that we've had several projects, and specifically, as an example, the Creston Road Apartments, the Red Tail project, where it was the rear-facing balconies that went through City Council and were objected to and had to come back to Planning Commission to be fixed. So, is there any reason why we wouldn't require, particularly a second story and third story structure? Is there any reason why we wouldn't require all the balconies to be enclosed? I mean, it seems like that's been a pretty universal and standard requirement.
This is Darcy again. So a couple of the projects mentioned that have already gone through the Planning Commission process. There was previously discussion on the balcony material having more of a physical barrier, and that was more so to do with the direct line of sight being in closer proximity to other residential projects. So with the 200 unit project on Creston, I'm not going to remember the exact distance, but it was bounded by 2 existing residential projects. And so that was to help eliminate direct line of sight, in addition with the landscape screening. And then we had another project, which by the same applicant tonight, which was over in the Woodland Plaza Shopping Center. And there is there's an adjacent residential neighborhood to the south. And so similar reasons why that project ended up adding materials to the balcony, so it wasn't just see-through, to just eliminate that direct line of sight. With this project, there are no third floor balconies on the street-facing elevations, and it's not directly adjacent to any residential yet, but certainly the discussion is open for the so the second floor balconies have the guardrail or the galvanized metal railing. So the interior elevations at this point would be the concern, I think, if the Planning Commission would desire to see that same material throughout the entire complex on both the interior and exterior elevations.
I appreciate that. I mean, this would seem like this is really the first project. So obviously there's nothing around it now, but the whole area is going to be residential, and would seem to be, it would be prudent to maintain that type of a standard. But I'll move on to my second question. So, and I'm not really sure how to identify it. This might be more for an applicant or somebody that has a set of plans, but on the drawings, the A21 and the A2.3, I noted that each of the units was being afforded a 250 cubic inch storage outside, but from what I could gather, just from looking in essence at the footprints, I didn't see any sort of elevation. Is there something that identifies that clustering and what that storage units actually look like? It seemed like they were like all grouped together floor by floor. Is there something that would give us an idea of what that actually would look like? Yeah, so this is Darcy again. So it's kind of hard to see maybe on the let's see, building, the building A. So at the bottom corner, I guess closest to the bottom, there is like a shed roof enclosing what I believe is that's the storage room. And so that would be replicated on each of the buildings. We can kind of scroll through to see if there's another elevation. So in essence, is it like a storage room that has lockers inside, or I mean, how would you characterize it? Right. So the purpose is, in this specific plan, there's a requirement for each unit to have 250 cubic square feet of closet space that is exterior from their unit. And so as proposed, each unit would have a ground floor accessed storage space. And so, bicycles, Christmas decorations, you name it, that is the purpose of that storage space, but it's a requirement in the specific plan. Yeah, I'm aware of it again from another project, but you're saying there's nothing really that illustrates what that looks like or how that would work. Correct. There's no specific criteria on how it would be incorporated into each of the buildings. Okay. All right. My other comment, I guess, really is more of a rhetorical type comment, is on the exhibit app, which is labeled A30, the landscaping. It just seems like the perimeter landscaping in particular is basic at best. And my comment would be that I'm not sure why we would do that, or why the applicant would want to have that. I'd like personally to see a much more robust, at least on the perimeter side, see some sort of landscaping beyond what the renderings are. And it could be just the renderings. I'm seeing this landscaping plan, but I'm literally looking at the renderings, and it just basically shows areas of grass and a few trees. And we generally have asked for more than that, but those would be my comments or my questions. Like my fellow commissioners have expressed, I am pretty overwhelmingly impressed and supportive of this project. It's something that's much needed. I like the design of it. I compliment the applicant who put this together. I just, again, have those three more minor concerns that I'd maybe like to have some input on. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gibson. Commissioner Covarrubias.
Thank you, Chairperson Kogler. Just back to the storage, just a little clarification. If I'm looking at the underneath parking, it appears to me that there's some kind of doors or something, or some kind of access. Is that storage underneath there, or is that something access to something completely different?
Paul, do you want to answer the questions?
Oh, here I am. Sure. Well, what we're looking at here, these are more mechanical rooms that you're looking at right here. Let me share my screen again.
And while you do that, Paul, I guess my other question related to that is, it appears that we have some sort of garage or roll-up doors also throughout. What are those used for? And who has access to those?
Sure. Let me get to maybe this typical plan here. So this is so integrated into the building is this room where we have 8 storage closets here, and each 8 storage closet at the other end. And so those are integrated into the buildings, and I can go to an elevation to try to show you how they are integrated into the buildings itself. The roll-ups are where we have electrical meters and panels on the side of the sides of the buildings. So in an area like here and here, we'll have those to screen those banks of meters. And if we do go all electric, that would, or if we didn't go all electric, they would have gas meters in there as well. So it's a way that we've started to provide, instead of a lot of doors, we were proposing just these roll-up doors that will be painted out the same as the body color. Let me go to an elevation. So here, let's say in this rendering, this door right here is the entrance into one of those storage areas with 8 storage closets. We would have one right here and right here and right here. They're really at the ends of all of these buildings, but integrated to look like it's part of a part of the building itself.
Got it. Okay. All right. And so the tenants would have access to each of their individual storage units within that little section. Got it.
And we went this route because I mean, it's more built-in area, but if you start looking at the other alternatives, we would have to put them out on the balconies and the patios. And what would then happen would be we would have more solid walls, especially on the 3-story sides, a 3-story massing, where now we have that that roof over inset decks on the second and third floor with that void look and not the massing of back-to-back storage closets that might be associated with those decks and balconies.
Got it. Thank you for that, Mr. Davis.
Sure.
Most of my questions were answered, but I do have one curiosity question, and maybe it's for the city engineer. With regards to lighting on a project like this, are there certain requirements that specific types of lighting or location of lighting be used? And my example would be Chairperson Gibson mentioned the landscaping and the perimeter of it. It is a little basic, but one of the things that I seldom hear talked about is the lighting and the safety component of the lighting. So I would assume some of that is required, and if so, what exactly is required?
Hi, Commissioner Covarrubias. Happy to answer your question, but are you referring to the on-site or the off-site lighting?
Kind of both. I think the on-site lighting it probably gets lit the majority by maybe the parking, the covered parking areas, and some of the exterior of the building. But what about the perimeter portions of it?
Yeah, so any kind of lighting on the perimeter that's attached to the building would be, I'll let Darcy address that. In terms of the street lighting, we're going to have, right now we haven't figured that out, but typically we would have lights at, say, the intersection of Fontana and not this project's driveway, but the road that is kind of shown in that upper right-hand corner, kind of grayed out, looks like a road. We'd have a street light there. I'd have to look at the other spacing of street lights. Typically, it's 200 feet plus or minus, meaning it could be 150 between lights. It could be 250 between lights, just depending on the area. Also, I got to look at the specific plan itself and see what the overall specific plan calls for in terms of pedestrian level lights. But if in terms of the off-site lighting, if the commission wanted more lights, you certainly could, put a condition in there for additional lights, and we would have to go back with the master developer and work on that. But in terms of the off-sites, that hasn't been determined.
Okay, so just to clarify, the lighting itself then on the perimeter, does that get addressed upon completion of the project of this phase, or do we wait till other phases surrounding this part of it is done first? I guess what's the timing of something like that?
Sure. So the way this project, not this project, but the Olson South Chandler project is set up is that the developer will basically turn over a turnkey pad to this project, and then they'll build their project on that. And so all the frontage improvements will need to be done, completed. That includes lighting, the street widening, the sidewalks, in order for this project to move forward. So we've kind of got two different things there. But in terms of some projects have lighting outside of buildings, but that all, this is more residential, so it's a little more darker skies than we would have, say, in our commercial areas where we have, more lighting.
Right. Okay, I appreciate that clarification. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I had a better answer for you, but we're kind of like chicken and the egg thing right now because the master developer hasn't come back with their track plans yet.
Understood. I was just curious, more for safety purposes than anything. Okay. All right. I think all of my other questions have already been addressed, and I will say I do love the look, and I love the affordability aspect of this project. Much needed in our city. So I commend Mr. Davis and all those involved in this project. No other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have just a few. I was on the DRC for this one as well, so a lot of things have already been covered. David, if I could go back just for a second to the comments you had in response to Commissioner Covarrubias's questions. Will Fontana Road be improved by the time this building opens or this project opens for first occupancy?
That's yet to be determined. Is Isaac on the phone? Isaac, do you know if I think the DA, the development agreement stipulates that this project is basically ready to go when they get going on building. So which would mean that the frontage improvements would be complete. Certainly wouldn't, I'm sorry, was that Isaac?
Yeah, Dave, I was just going to say I'm not familiar with the specific provision in the DA, having not worked on it, but I mean, I would expect you might see provisions like that in terms of the broader development requirements for those types of improvements that are going to apply specific plan wide, including to this planning area 1.
Yeah, so I was just looking at the DA real quick. It's in 3.033, and it says that the master developer is going to deliver the site to this project with the rough grading done, the frontage improvements on Fontana and Niblick completed, and the utility stub out. So basically, like I was mentioning, it's a plug and play project. So in the event that the master developer is not ready, of course, we're really interested in this project, so we would work closely with the applicant here tonight. That may mean somebody just builds the improvements on Fontana in front of this project so that they can get open, but that would require negotiations within the DA, the development agreement. So does that answer your question, Mr. Kogler?
Yeah, I think it does, to the degree that there can be an answer at this point in time. Kind of related to that, and this may be a question for Lori, what is the hope for opening of this? I know you've got funding and a number of things to go through before you're ready to actually start construction. What is the hope for actual occupancy here in terms of timing?
Sure. So with this approval, hopefully this evening, we have some financing to apply for in March. If we are successful, we would start construction by the end of this year. I would project occupancy probably about 18 months from then. And that's kind of best case scenario if we are successful in our tax credit allocation on the first round of funding. That would be the soonest.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Couple of other quick things. Darcy, you talked about the density bonus to go from 60 to 69 units. I understand that. The Vigneto plan, I think, was capped at 1,293, and I just have a procedural question. Do those 9 units get added onto that? Does the specific plan now go to 1,302, or do they have to take 9 units from somewhere else since they're going here?
So Isaac can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that they do not count towards the 1,293. So they don't count as units for the project. So Isaac, I don't know if you want to clarify that.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Darcy. I think because the issuance of the density bonus is essentially ministerial under state law, the idea is that it's an incentive to build those affordable units that is allowed sort of that extension from our codified authorities, whether they be the total number of units in the specific plan, or even if it was just from the base density within our zoning ordinance. So the density bonus units are sort of added on top of the base density that's contemplated within the authorities. And I would also note that our development agreement also specifies that the P1 is 60 units or higher, contingent on a state law issued density bonus.
Okay, thank you. And I think the only other question I had, perhaps, for the architect is, tell me these panels that you're going to be putting on as a kind of screen for the balconies. It's shown as kind of a corrugated metal. What is the finish on that? Is that a matte finish, so it's not reflective of light?
Let me see. Let me get over to that.
No, you had a kind of a photo of it.
Yeah, well, Yeah, this is kind of a galvanized finish, but we can look at coating these coating them so they wouldn't be reflective with some type of a matte clear finish or paint.
Okay, but just curious if those are potentially sources of glare or anything. That was the only thought there.
No, that's good.
Okay.
Good comment. Yeah, that's a good comment.
Okay, that's the only questions that I had. Any commissioners come up with any questions since we've been running through this that you would like to put forward? Otherwise, we'll open the public hearing and proceed.
Yes, I do have a couple questions. This is Commissioner Christensen.
Yes, please proceed.
Kind of piggybacking off your question, Chairperson Kogler, about the additional 9 units. So I know that a lot of the laws have changed this year, but the specific plan was approved before that. I think what I wanted to know, because when the EIR report was done and submitted, did they take into account for mitigation for additional units, and how many? Did they have a number that they planned for? And then with that in mind, do we have a number that we can say the city is expecting moving forward to see additional, if we're adding on from an amount of units of 1293 that we approved it for? What are we looking at down the road? Is there a number that someone can say, hey, you know what, we're probably looking at an additional 20, 30 units? And maybe this is more of a question for Isaac. I'm not sure who can answer that, but it definitely piques a question to me that I know that we approved this earlier before this project and before the new laws came into effect. So how does that affect moving forward? Maybe, I mean, how many more units can we tack on? I mean,
so Commissioner Christensen, Warren Frey, so I'll take a shot at it.
Okay.
So the density bonus laws actually go back decades. So they have changed, but the idea of density bonus units not counting against, your existing density is actually an old rule. So adding the 9 in here wasn't specifically analyzed in the EIR because density bonus units aren't subject to CEQA basically. So we don't have a consistency concern there. I think your second question was, how many other additional units could we expect in this project? The way the project was conditioned and in the development agreement, the developer is actually required to build additional accessory dwelling units, the ADUs, in this project area. So I think there's a requirement for roughly 100 more ADUs to be built within the single family project, which technically would add at least another 100 to that 1293 unit, plus the 9 we're talking tonight, which is probably our best estimate of the total number of units in the project.
Okay, so I do remember that discussion about the ADUs and that being a particular requirement. And I do remember the discussion about, vaguely, to be honest with you, Warren, about the density allocation. I know that not a lot of that's changed. It's been around for a while. I think I wanted to get a more clear number, because saying 1293 is really disingenuous in my view. And I know that's not something that we have a lot of say over in some ways, but to me that sounds very disingenuous. So knowing that we've already got the other 100, that was part of the specific plan. I remember that. You're thinking maybe only the additional 9 for this project. You don't foresee any others for some of the other projects moving forward?
No, I don't believe that any other projects in here will be density bonus. Everything else is expected to be market rate.
Okay. All right. Thanks for explaining that. I appreciate it. Thanks, Warren.
Okay. Any other questions of commissioners?
Chairperson Kogler.
Yes, Commissioner Jorgensen.
Yes, thank you. A question that came up during the conversation. I think this is for staff. Something in the back of my mind makes me want to ask about how much ability does the city and therefore the Planning Commission have to review placement of solar panels? Is there some kind of a right to do that? It is not reviewable. I don't recall, but if you could clarify that for me, I'd appreciate it.
Hi, Roberta. This is Darcy again. So if the Planning Commission did want the solar panels to go back for review by the Development Review Committee, it would count as a formal public meeting. And so kind of just reminding you back to the discussion we had, was that last meeting with Isaac about housing laws. The project is limited to 5 total meetings under SB 330. With the review of the solar panels, the DRC would be probably be more of a collaborative type of discussion as opposed to maybe there being set requirements, only because the applicant will, is trying to meet their Title 24 requirements. We don't have a lot of discretion over solar carports, but just kind of keeping in mind how if the DRC did want to see that, just one more time, how that kind of factors into the new housing laws. Did that answer your question?
Thank you. No, actually, you added on additional information about the number of meetings, so thank you. That's obviously a major issue as well. But I'm not sure it did, because do we really even have discretion to say you need to put your solar panels here or there, since that is a calculated location, not a aesthetic location decision? And so how much discretion do we even have? I'm asking this because I just don't know what I'm going to think if that's proposed by the commission. How much can we even say? So is it important to bring it back? That's what I'm trying to get my head around.
Commissioner, it's Isaac. I think the way to think about it is, our standards conditions, and we can certainly ask applicant, considers that, the review of panels is part of that requirement in advance of building check. And I think, if the Planning Commission wants to sort of review and like Darcy said, sort of work collaboratively with applicant on how they'd like to see solar panels, I think that's okay, so much as it's separate from, the item that's considered tonight with respect to tonight's approval. So I think if it's parsed out and it's sort of just a review to come back to DRC in order to get a sense of what they're doing and to solicit input from the commission, I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, last call for any other questions from commissioners.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'll follow up if I could, Chairperson Kugler.
Commissioner Neal, then Commissioner Covarrubias.
Thank you.
Isaac, would that then still be a public meeting for this project, or would it just be a discussion?
I think if it's still, well, let's see, our DRC, it's not a quorum of the Planning Commission, correct? So it's not it's not a Brown Act meeting. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Then I think
we have 3 out of 7 serving on the DRC.
I see. Right. And it's sort of a level of informal review. I don't know that it's expressed under the state law. I think to the extent it's sort of a discussion the same way planning staff would have with project applicant regarding some of those items, then conceivably there's an argument it's not one of the 5 meetings that are required for project approval. So I think the way to think of this condition, now that we're sort of discussing, is similar to this sort of standard condition where it would go to planning staff essentially in order to weigh in and work with the city on those items, as opposed to an express project approval and the 5 hearing limitation. And so my apologies if that was unclear.
Okay, so I think I'm getting that it is not one of the 5 public meetings.
I think because the condition is structured so that essentially prior to building permits, the items either go to city staff for sort of review and discussion, or conceivably if DRC wants to look at solar panels and what's feasible, then that can be done without it constituting a project approval, because it's not conditioned on, for instance, an approval from the larger body. It's sort of a discussion item. as we get further along in the project project phase. It's not an express approval that needs to be given by the Planning Commission, which is occurring tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Covarrubias, did you have another question?
I do, really quick. Thank you, Chairperson Kogler. Just a curiosity, I forgot to ask, on Fontana Road, is there going to be parking allowed on the street, or is that going to be restricted?
This is Darcy again. So the project does propose street parking on Fontana Road adjacent to the project site. I know it's not shown on the screen right now, but the site plan does show a number of parking stalls that fit on both those sections fronting the project.
Okay, is that only going to be on Fontana, or is it going to go all the way around?
Yeah.
Hi, Commissioner Covarrubias. This is David Athey. It would only be on Fontana Road. Lene Road does not have any parking as designed. Right.
Okay. So we're not concerned about any congestion on Fontana then, if we're going to allow parking on the street?
Yeah, I mean, I think Fontana right now serves as the connector to the county. Most of that traffic is going to be put on the new Niblick Road just to the north of this site. So we're actually going to see the volume of traffic on Fontana and the old Lene Road, it's going to be renamed eventually, drop significantly, and it will only be this project and the commercial / industrial area really using it significantly.
And this is
so I don't anticipate parking here being an issue.
This is Darcy again. Just to clarify, so we have 2 unnamed roads that would wrap around the project. So that would be the north and east sides of the project site, and those do have street parking. But as David Athey stated, there's no parking on Lene, but you'll have Fontana, and then the 2 unnamed streets. So the 3 roads that front this project site will have street parking. And so there's a total of 48 parking spaces.
Okay, so it's already been counted out, so we know it'll be 48 exterior, call it exterior street parking spots available?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, staff, for answering all of those and walking us through some of the detail there. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing to seek comments and questions from the public pertaining to this project and information that you would like to share with the Planning Commission. I have a record that Jan Alban has been patiently holding on during this discussion. And Jan, if you're still there, we would certainly like to hear what you have to say.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we certainly can.
Oh, thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jan Alban. I'm a resident of Quail Run, and we are, of course, right around the corner from this project. And you know, as a community of senior citizens, we have, you know, a certain amount of concerns. And so because I really can't engage in discussion with you, all I can do is ask my questions. And my first question is, I'm a little bit lost on the density, et cetera. Can you tell me the maximum residency? How many people actually will this development accommodate? That's one question. The second question is, how many total spaces within the complex will there be, or are you pretty much counting on the outside of the development parking for excess parking, let's just say? You know, and I have great concerns about infrastructure improvements. I haven't heard any discussion about any infrastructure improvements. That's generally something they do talk a great deal about when we're talking about any other developments, but I haven't heard it for this. So I don't know what they're going to do. Also don't know what kind of road improvements there's going to be. David Athey just said that the road improvements haven't really been addressed yet. They're not going to be addressed until somewhere down the road. I find that very strange indeed that you wouldn't be putting it out there to tell me how you're going to improve the road. Because there's no EIR required for this development, we also don't have a traffic report. And so I would like to know how the city or this developer plans on mitigating the excessive amount of traffic that's going to be coming from Fontana, from Lene and from Fontana over to what is now Sherwood, that's going to turn into Niblick, because it will be significant. And so those are our concerns. There's probably not a lot we can do about much else, but the traffic and is really something that's very significant to us. I also would like to know, who is the master developer? You've talked about that a couple of times. Can you tell me who that is? And you know, I think those are my only questions for now. I'd appreciate the answers, and thank you very much for your time.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you again for sticking with us and offering those comments. We'll get responses to those as well as other questions that are raised here in a few minutes. Are there any other individuals who would like to address the Planning Commission tonight on this project? Staff, do you have a record of anybody else being out there?
No, we do not.
Okay. That being the case, I will then close the public hearing and we'll bring this back to the commission. I was noting the questions that were offered, and some staff has done the same thing. And so I would turn this back to staff to maybe coordinate a discussion between yourselves and applicant representatives to address the points that were raised by Ms. Albin.
So Warren Fraser, maybe I'll take the first cut at it, and then Dave Athey can probably throw in a couple more. I think the first question was just overall density, number of people that we expect in the project. And I think, so we go back to, let's see, where's that specific plan table? Right here. So we talked about that the specific plan density is 1,293 units, that we're going to be adding another 9 units with this project under the density bonus law. And then there's a requirement under the development agreement for 100 additional ADU units. That brings the total unit count in the project to 1,400. The city, the average population for a dwelling unit is 2.7 people per unit. So that brings you to about 3,780 people would be expected in the entire build out of the Olson South Chandler specific plan. Within the apartment project that we're talking to tonight, if we use the 2.7 multiplier, you end up with about 190 residents in there. The questions about the timing of the infrastructure and the road improvements. So we talked about, this is part of the Olson South Chandler specific plan. So when we did the specific plan, there was a full EIR that analyzed all the impacts of the project, including this apartment project. So there's a mitigation plan that addresses all the traffic requirements. So the master developer, which is Olson 212, they are responsible for implementing the project improvements, which is the infrastructure, as well as the traffic improvements, both on-site and off-site. So one example is, before any unit is occupied within the specific plan, including the apartments, there's some off-site signals down on Creston Road and 13th that were identified in the EIR that need to be upgraded. So that's one example of an off-site improvement that has to happen before the first unit. Then the EIR identifies a series of additional improvements throughout the project, as well as along Niblick Road, Creston Road, River Road, that still need to be made as part of this project. So this is part of the EIR, basically. This has all been analyzed as part of the EIR. The master developer will be the lead on making those improvements, both on-site and off-site. They will also be doing the road improvements, the sewer and the water improvements. So basically everything that was agreed to in the specific plan is a requirement that will happen in conjunction with this project moving forward. So I think those were the main questions that were raised.
Warren, my notes indicate too, there perhaps will kind of restating, if you would, the parking situation, the spaces for residents, the on-street parking surrounding, how all that fits together.
So this is Darcy, I can answer that. So the project is required to provide 139 total parking spaces. And so of the 139, 123 are strictly for the residents. That's based on the number of parking, I believe it's 1.5 per 2 and 3 bedroom, per 1 bedroom, and then 2 per 2 and 3 bedroom. So that's how you get the 139. 123 are for the residents, and then there's a factor that has to be taken into account to determine the parking spaces for guests. So you end up needing 16. So the project is providing 134 resident parking spaces. So the requirement is 123. They're providing 134 and for the residents. And then the requirement for the guests is 16, and they're going to be providing 48. And again, those can be street parking because the specific plan allows street parking within 200 feet of the project to count towards that minimum requirement. So they're going above and beyond for parking.
Okay, thank you, Darcy. Then the only other request I would have, Warren, you mentioned that the Vigneta master developer is Olson 212, I think you said. But for sake of kind of full information, it might be helpful if someone would address the actual applicants for this specific project or the Paso Robles Housing Authority and Affordable Housing Development Corporation. And I don't know, Warren, I would call on Dave Cook if he was here, but you or Lori or somebody, talk just for a second, if you would, about the relationship between those two parties and who does what.
Sure, this is Lori. I'm happy to take that question if that's okay. So I'm with Affordable Housing Development Corporation. I am a developer located in the Fresno area, and the Paso Robles Housing Authority obviously is your local housing authority there in Paso Robles. So we have partnered on 3 other developments within the city of Paso Robles, and we share development roles and responsibilities, including entitlements and design, construction, operations, and ultimate ownership and management. So that is our role in this development specifically that we have undertaken together on a few other properties in Paso Robles.
Sure, thank you. Okay, I think hopefully that addresses all of the questions that were put forward. It seems to match my notes reasonably well. With that, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and eventual action. As we go through comments by the commissioners, I think we've heard several things tonight from staff as part of the initial presentation. There is another item number 7 to consider as a condition of approval. We've talked about the potential of some of the project details, such as solar coming back to the DRC, which is kind of meeting, but kind of isn't really a meeting kind of thing. It's more of a review and comment. We've also talked about, it was suggested that the balcony screening should be considered on all of the balconies, not just the external ones. And then there was also a comment by the commission that perhaps some more robust landscaping would be in order, particularly in the perimeter areas of the site. So those are kind of the things that have been brought up, but what does the commission think about those and other things as we go through kind of discussion round, leading up ultimately to a motion on this? So I'll follow the same sequence we did last time. Commissioner Jorgensen, any discussion points you would like to offer?
Thank you. I ordinarily would concur on the having the railings enclosed. That's something that I've raised on a number of previous projects. I'm satisfied with the resolution that they have proposed that all exterior balconies will be a solid railing. So I'm okay on that. I'm happy to take that on a case-by-case basis and not have it as a strict requirement, every balcony in the city. So I'm okay with the way that's been treated. The landscaping, I think it was an unfortunate plan that was given to us. We asked for a detailed plan and we got something not very detailed. But the way that it's worded, the ill-defined definition of a planting, but in looking at that landscape sheet for a few minutes and trying to really understand what they were trying to say, I think I'm satisfied that if that goes to staff for specific review, that will be adequate to me. And then lastly, I'm not interested in looking at the solar to come back. I don't understand why we do that. I mean, they have restrictions, or excuse me, the developer has requirements by code and for the state, and there's certainly certain sun angles that require certain quantity. I'm not personally interested in seeing that. I think it is going to be what it's going to be. So other than that, so I think I would be ready to approve this as recommended by staff with the addition of condition 7.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Neal, any discussion points?
No further discussion from me.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Davis.
No further discussion. I'm kind of on the fence on the solar panels. I just know that in a lot of the applications in the past, we have had some comment at a DRC level. I do understand this is a unique kind of housing project, and I think I'm fine with staff. I think color and presentation is really more the issues that they're not as apparent. If there could be a little bit more robust landscaping, I think that could maybe make it more attractive, and maybe you wouldn't see as much of the solar panels. So I really like this project, and I'm thinking I'm willing to approve it. I could go either way on the solar panels coming back to the commission. I do like the railings. At first, the image I saw just looked like a cover over the wrought iron railings. But as I saw a more specific detail, and if there isn't any glare, I'm fine with what's being presented. And I don't think we need to mandate them throughout the entire project. I'm fine with what they're proposing. So those are my thoughts at this time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Christensen.
I'll be brief. I would concur with a lot of what Commissioner Davis just said, and I would agree with Commissioner Jorgensen on the balconies as well. I'm okay with that. Other than that, I have no other comments. I do like the project. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Gibson.
I too very much like the project. I think it's something that is much needed in our town. My understanding of what was being proposed in regards to the balconies, that they only going to do the different treatment for street-facing balconies. And if that's the case, then I cannot, obviously I'll support the project, but it's one of those hold your nose type situations, because I don't think that's adequate for the neighbors, and it's not consistent with any other project that I can recall of apartments, and trying to be fair to all the projects, that we treat them in the same fashion, the same rules. I would like to see a more robust landscaping. I think landscaping in many cases, really, especially with a density of housing, as the housing density increases, I think the landscape actually becomes more and more important. And I can recall having, again, discussion on many projects, and it was mentioned the housing authority and the project in the Kohl's Walmart shopping center. And I know we had a specific requirement that we attached to that project. that the perimeter would have a more robust landscaping. And I supported that concept then, and I would ask for that now. So, but I do like this project, and hoping that this can come to fruition sooner than later.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Covarrubias.
Thank you. Just two comments, I think. Oh, actually, three real fast. I agree with Commissioner Jorgensen. Not too concerned about the solar review part of this. I think there's enough regulation and requirements in place already that it could be almost literally self-monitored. And then I also do agree with Commissioner Gibson on the landscaping. I think it's really important. I think we've tried to set a precedence that we certain types of landscaping and appearance be done on these projects, and I think we need to stand true to that in this one. Overall, I really like the project. I think it's a solid project and long overdue for our community. So those are my two comments.
Okay, thank you. I really don't have anything more to add except to probably pile on as others have done. I think this is a really exciting start to this Vigneto specific plan, and a project the city very much needs to happen for the benefit of the community. So it's a great project. With that, I would ask, is there a motion that anybody would like to offer? There was a suggestion by staff, recommendation of approval of resolution A with conditional approval number 7 modified. And then the motion maker potentially has heard the discussion. Are there other things that might want to be entered into that as well? But do we have somebody who would like to make a motion?
Commissioner or Chairperson Kogler, I think I'll make that motion.
Please do, Commissioner Neal. Thank you.
Usually pretty good at this. I move approval of draft resolution A approving planned unit development 21-12 subject to site specific conditions of approval and changes to condition of approval number 7.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Covarrubias. I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second by Commissioner Covarrubias. Any further discussion? Last chance, further discussion? Hearing none. I would ask staff to please call the roll. Yes, Mr. Christensen?
Chairperson Kogler.
Just in under the wire.
I was trying to find my darn mute button, so it's not going to mute myself. I just had a quick question. Are we saying that we're not asking for further information on the landscaping? I guess I'm a little confused on that. So maybe you can clarify that yourself to me. And this motion does not involve that. Is that correct?
It does not. Motion maker here. It does not. I trust staff will do what is required per the specific plan and for this specific development.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted clarification. Thank you.
Okay, with that clarification, if there are no other comments by the commission, I would ask staff to please call the roll on the motion.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Commissioner Christensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, very good. Thank you for bringing that information to us, and good luck with the project.
Thank you very
With
much.
that, we'll continue to work through our agenda this evening. We're to item number H, which are discussion items. Are there any discussion items by staff?
There are none.
Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item I, which is our consent calendar. We do have items number 2 and 3 as subsets of item I, which are minutes of the Development Review Committee for December 13, December 20th of 2021 and of January 10th of 2022. We also have Planning Commission minutes for approval from a January 11th, 2022 meeting. Any comments, notes, changes to those minutes? Or a motion to approve the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes. This is Commissioner Christensen.
We have a motion to approve the 4 different items of minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
A second from Commissioner Gibson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the vote on that.
Commissioner Christensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Neal,
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias,
Aye.
Chairperson Kogler.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, other reports. Last week, there was a meeting of the HCOC that probably some of you tuned into. I know a few of us were there. Is there a report on that?
Yeah, last week at the Housing Constraints and Advisory Committee meeting, they held a workshop to look at the concept of potentially changing the boundaries of the Uptown Town Center specific plan, basically extending it potentially to the west off toward Chestnut Street. We've got some existing neighborhoods that are on the gridded blocks with alleys that have R1 and R2 designations. So the discussion was about the benefits of potentially changing that to the T3 type zoning that we see in the uptown zone, just for consistency and also to encourage more flexible development standards for multifamily or more compact development. The direction from the Housing Constraints Committee was they were satisfied that this issue's been reviewed adequately by them, and they've asked staff now to basically prepare a report for the City Council to consider initiation of a zone change process. This is really very early in the process. This is really before we even start a formal process. We were taking input from the public as well as the committee. This is still going to be a process subject to a significant amount of additional public comment and review. And any members of the public that are interested in commenting on this are invited to submit comments to the planning department, and those will be included to any reports to the council and commission. We also received an update from MIG, our consultant on the zoning code update. So they've prepared what they basically call a diagnosis of the existing zoning code, basically deficiencies. I think one of the key issues, just overall structure and organization, and that's going to be a key focus, is to improve the organization, consistency, and overall usability of the document, adding more tables to it, and making it more user-friendly to be utilized over the web, which is probably the primary way everyone will access it in the future. So that's staff's report.
Thank you, Warner. Any commissioner questions on that item before we move on? Hearing none, we'll move on to number 5, the Paso Robles Street report.
So we don't have any additional information to report at this point. We are still looking to schedule a meeting with the subcommittee on that. I'm expecting that first meeting to be in February.
Okay, very good, thank you. And then our last item on other reports is the DRC rotation schedule, which is not a lot to focus on right now because it's just February. That schedule is typically set after a newly seated planning commission takes the helm in March, and so I assume at that point in time, staff will be putting forward another schedule for any massaging we need to do of that. Is there any conflicts that Commissioners Gibson, Neal, or Covarrubias have in February that we can help with?
Chairperson Kogler, this is Commissioner Covarrubias. Not 100% yet, but there might be a possibility that there's a conflict on the 21st. If there is a DRC meeting of February for myself, I'll be out of town.
Okay. Should that occur, I can certainly fill in, and I'm sure some others may be able to as well.
I appreciate that.
Commissioner Gibson, Commissioner Neal, those dates work for you?
Yes, sir. This is Commissioner Gibson. I'm fine. I don't have any known conflicts at this time. Thank you.
Nor do I have any.
Very good. That stands as it's currently held. Item number K on our agenda are planning commissioner comments. I'll flip the order and start with Commissioner Covarrubias and go the other direction.
Appreciate that. No, great job by staff tonight on the item that we discussed. overall another good meeting. So appreciate everybody's time and efforts.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gibson.
I really have no other comment either, other than the comment that I'm very excited about this project that we had the pleasure of passing tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Christensen.
Oh, thank you. The only comment I have is, well, I have a comment and I have a question for Warren. The comment I have is that I hope, David, that you guys will work hard to figure out what that DA includes for offsite improvements before the certificate of occupancy comes into play on that project. I know it's going to be a great project, but I think there's going to be a lot of turmoil over those streets being accessible. Warren, I had a question. Can you remind me where we're at on the Railroad Street?
Yeah.
Can you give me an update?
So you've made a recommendation to City Council. We're working on preparing a report to the City Council. We're still trying to resolve some issues with the string lights over the street about whether those are going to be something we'll be able to recommend or not. So that's moving ahead. We also are going to do an outreach meeting with the neighbors on Railroad. We were kind of got set back because of the COVID spike on that. But I do believe February we'll be able to have that outreach meeting and then be able to follow up with the City Council.
Great, thanks so much. And you know, a shout out, Isaac, I wanted to say thanks for putting those PowerPoints together because Warren sent those to us individually. And I have to say, when you get a better chance to sit down and actually read that, at least for me, it's far more helpful. And I'm really thankful that you provided those because I'm sure they're not easy to put together. So that being said, I think I'm done for the night. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Davis.
Just want to say Happy New Year. I wasn't here at the last meeting and I have no further comments tonight.
Okay, Commissioner Neal.
Oh, I'd just like to say that the Housing Constraints Advisory Committee meeting was a great meeting. It seemed when it started that we had some neighborhood concern that I think Darcy and Genevieve from MIG answered all of their questions. And in the end, I think everybody was on board with the idea of expanding the Uptown Center specific plan. So just really, really thought it was a great meeting. So thank you very much, Darcy.
Okay, Commissioner Jorgensen.
No comment.
Okay, my only comment would be to reiterate perhaps what Commissioner Neal just said. I think that was one of the best HCOC meetings that I've been to in a couple of years. And I think there was kind of I don't know if it was a change in attitude that you could hear and feel during the meeting, or it's just a better understanding of what was being offered. But I think it was a very positive expression of the potential changes that may take place there. And it'll be interesting to see how that comes together as it moves forward. That's all the commission has. Are there staff comments that would like to be offered?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple updates. So we are in the process of interviewing for planning commissioners. Both Kogler and Davis's seats are up for reappointment. We have received 4 applications, including applications from Kogler and Davis. The City Council will be interviewing the applicants next Thursday, which is February 3rd. The applicants will be receiving information in terms of the timing and location of the interviews probably later this week. Following reappointments, it's our tradition to do a reorganization event the Sunday, last Sunday in February, so that's February 27th. We're still looking at the options for whether that's going to be in person or not, so we'll provide additional information on that fairly soon. And then there's the Planning Commission Academy coming up in March, and Marcy will give us a quick update on that.
Hi, everyone. So Planning Commission Academy is going to be held in San Ramon, California. It's March 16th through the 18th. I haven't had any commissioners reach out with any interest. Just wanted to kind of get a feel and see if anyone was interested. The deadline for registering is not until March 4th, but we definitely would like to get someone registered sooner rather than later if they are interested.
Thank you, Marcy. A couple project updates. We've got the large Justin Winery project at the end of Wisteria. DRC did their final review of the plans out there, so that is a project we expect to see construction on fairly soon. The Boys School reuse project, also known as the Landing, continues to move forward on the EIR. Right now, we're probably looking at late winter, early spring for public review of the EIR and potentially hearings before summer on that project. And then the Gateway Resort, that's the annexation project down on 46 West. We have received notification from the county and the state of California that the annexation is complete. So that 130 acres is now part of the city of Paso Robles. We're meeting regularly with a developer on the South Vine realignment process. That's the first step before any development would happen out there. And let's see, budget season. We are working on a 2-year budget that's scheduled for council approval in June. So starting in February, there'll be a number of budget meetings as well as public workshops. So the Planning Commission will probably want to pay attention to that. Some of their priorities, potentially downtown lighting, streetscape, things like that, will probably be part of the budget discussions. And that'll conclude staff's report.
Okay, thank you. With that, our only remaining item is a motion to adjourn. Do we have one?
I'll move to adjourn. This is Commissioner Christensen.
A motion from Commissioner Christensen. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
We have a second as well. Is that Commissioner Gibson?
Yes, sir, it is.
Very good. Okay, with motion a second, all in favor, please say aye.
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 We're done. Thank
Have
you
a
all.
great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,